What's up, guys? It's Interman103, and I'm coming to you with episode 2 in the 1941 strategy series. And episode 2 is still going to stay on the topic of Russia. Episode 1 concerned an aggressive Russia, and now episode 2 is going to be about the more commonly played defensive Russia in 1941. So in defensive Russia, the basic goal is to get as many troops as humanly possible into two territories. And those two territories, unlike aggressive Russia, are not West Russia and Ukraine. In defensive Russia, the two territories that you want to amass in are Russia, or Moscow, and the Caucasus. The reason you want to keep these territories is because they have your factories in them. And if you lose those territories, you can't produce troops anymore, and that excludes you from the game. Basically, in a defensive Russia, you just want to stay in the game as long as possible. Okay? So, the most important territory obviously is Moscow, because if you lose your capital, you can't collect money. But Caucasus is also important because if you still have Moscow, you can produce troops there. However, we are going to be playing an absolutely defensive Russia and putting most of our troops into Moscow. So our purchase is still the same as the aggressive Russia's purchase, and that is 2 infantry. Again, no matter what version of Russia you're playing, you want to buy as many infantry as you can every turn for the whole game, no matter what. You're never buying tanks, submarines, fighters, none of that fancy crap. You're only buying infantry, ever, okay? So, as defensive Russia, you obviously have no combat moves. You only have non-combat moves for your turn, okay? And those non-combat moves will consist of about 4 moves, maybe 5. So, first of all, you just want to move the tank from the Caucasus into Russia, along with the 3 infantry from Archangel go into Moscow. So, that'll give you there 9 infantry, 2 tanks, and a fighter, which is outrageous. That is a big stack of guys. Okay? You also want to move these 3 infantry from Karelia back into Archangel. Alright? So the Germans will take this dollar from you, but it's not about money when you're playing defensively. It's about territory, and the only 2 territories, like I said, that matter are Caucasus and Moscow. So while we're up here, the submarine, instead of going to C-Zone 6 like aggressive Russia, you just want to move it into C-Zone 3. This gives you a little bit more options, I guess, but you mainly don't want to be in the way of the Germans in their rage against Great Britain if they do attack Great Britain. And then over here, a pretty obvious move is the guys from Siberia are going to move into the Urals. Now, controlling the Urals is also a very important territory, not nearly as important as the Caucasus or Moscow. But in any game that I've played as Russia and I decided to play defensively, I always leave these 3 guys in the Urals. The reason why I think the Urals is important is because once the Japanese take the Urals, or the Germans by some miracle, then the Japanese have access to Caucasus and Russia and Archangel, which puts you into a 2-front war from the 2 most important territories. You do not want to have to defend Moscow from 2 sides. So Urals is a pretty important territory, but if it comes down to it and you need those infantry in Moscow, do not hesitate to move them there. Okay? Then, for our placing units, those 2 infantry, simply, will go in Moscow. And that's it. So that brings you up to 11 infantry inside of Moscow with 2 tanks and a fighter. And in the surrounding Russian territories of Archangel, Urals, and Caucasus, you have 3 infantry. This is the purest form of a defensive Russia, guys. It is super simple, and if you are absolutely new to this game, never played Axis and Allies before, 1941 is your first one, which 1941 is the one I would recommend if you want to get into the game. But if it's your first game and you're playing with someone else and you are playing Russia, this is what I would recommend doing. You have a very good chance of holding on to Moscow if you just smack everything, every living daylight into it. Every guy, soldier, tank, fighter, everything. And all of your builds will go into Moscow. Now, if you do this, you'll get to a point where you can only buy 1 infantry per turn, and that 1 infantry always goes into Moscow. Every purchase for the rest of the game goes into Moscow. Again, you want to hold on to Caucasus because it is important, but you're not going to use more guys than these 3. These 3 infantry, you're going to be depending on these 3 infantry to defend it. Which the Germans, obviously, if they're seeing you're playing defensively, they're not going to defend Caucasus. They take it. Fine. You still have Moscow. You are still in the game. And that's what's important. If they do take Caucasus, forget it. Shove everything into Russia. It does not matter. Alright, guys, I hope that this has been useful for Russia. The turns that two options that you have, basically, and what Russia can do effectively. And in the next episode, we will get into Germany, and we will see what they can do. Alright, thanks for sticking around, guys. Cinderman 103 saying I love you, and peace out.